Hello, and welcome to the Feeling Good podcast, where you can learn powerful techniques to change the way you feel. I am your host, Dr. Rhonda Borowski, and joining me here in the Murrieta studio is Dr. David Burns. Dr. Burns is a pioneer in the development of cognitive behavioral therapy and the creator of the new team therapy. He is the author of Feeling Good, which has sold over 5 million copies in the United States and has been translated into over 30 languages. His latest book, Feeling Great, contains powerful new techniques that make rapid recovery possible for many people struggling with depression and anxiety. Dr. Burns is currently an emeritus adjunct professor of clinical psychiatry at Stanford University School of Medicine.
Hello, Rhonda.
Hello, David, and welcome to all of our listeners in the United States, Canada, Mexico, across the universe, and so I don't forget, living in the galaxy.
As well as our listeners in Fresno.
Right. And that third laughter you hear is our special guest, Matt May. Hi, Matt.
Hey, Rhonda. Hey, David. So great to
Hi,
be back
Matt.
with you both. Good to see you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a highlight of the week, if not the month.
Me too.
And so since Matt's here, our listeners can probably figure out that this is an Ask David episode. But first, I'm going to start off by reading an endorsement. I'm going to read it with Matt. We're going to take two roles.
Yeah.
All right.
See it. Yeah.
All right. Dear Dr. Burns, I greatly appreciated Dr. Matt May's suggestion in the Feeling Good podcast, episode 391 of the zigzag technique for crushing negative thoughts when alone. Has anyone ever been more alone than Robinson Crusoe in the 1719 novel? And sure enough, here he is in chapter 4 of Dr. Burns' book, literally drawing a line down a piece of paper and seeming to follow Dr. Burns' technique, an example, if ever there was one, of great minds thinking alike. I now begin to seriously consider my condition and the circumstances I was reduced to, and I drew up the state of my affairs in writing to deliver my thoughts from daily poring over them and afflicting my mind. And as my reason began now to master my despondency, I began to set the good against the evil. And I stated very impartially, like debtor and creditor, the comforts I enjoyed against the miseries I suffered. Thus, now Matt and I are going to do the zigzag technique. Matt's going to be evil, and I'm going to be good.
So just to make it clear to our users, this is what Rhonda just wrote was a quote from the famous novel Robinson Crusoe about this fellow who's stranded on a deserted island, and he's now writing down, I guess he has paper and pencil, the negatives in the left-hand column and the positives in the right-hand column, and he labels those columns evil and good. And Matt will now play the evil role, and Rhonda will be the good. And this is a perfect example of the zigzag technique.
Okay, so I'm playing the evil thoughts. Is that
correct?
That Robinson Crusoe is experiencing? Okay.
And I'm the good thoughts that he's countering them with.
All right. I will now make you feel terrible. I am cast upon a horrible, desolate island, void of all hope of recovery.
Oh no, but I am alive and not drowned, as all my ship's company were.
I am singled out and separated, as it were, from all the world to be miserable.
But I'm singled out too, from all the ship's crew, to be spared from death. And he that miraculously saved me from death can deliver me from this condition.
I am divided from mankind, a solitaire, one banished from human society.
But I am not starved and perishing on a barren place, affording no sustenance.
I have no clothes to cover me.
But I'm in a hot climate, where if I had clothes, I could hardly wear them.
I'm without any defense or means to resist any violence of man or beast.
But I am cast on an island where I see no wild beasts to hurt me, as I saw on the coast of Africa. And what if I had been shipwrecked there?
I have no soul to speak to or relieve me.
But God wonderfully sent the ship in near enough to the shore that I have got out as many necessary things as will either supply my wants or enable me to supply myself, even as long as I live.
So that is so cool. And thanks for reminding me. And when I saw that, I thought, my gosh, this was probably the world's first cognitive therapist, was that whoever wrote Robinson Crusoe. And I do believe I have this excerpt or a portion of it in my first book, Feeling Good. I know I included it and credited it in one of my books, but it had completely slipped my mind. And then you can actually do something like this that we call the
Zigzag technique?
Yeah, the zigzag technique. You write the negative thought in the left-hand column and then counter it in the right-hand column, and then go down again. That's kind of zigzagging down to the next, to the negative thought column again, and say, yes, but, and you come up with a new negative thought. And then you write down a positive thought in the right-hand column, and you keep doing that until you run out of negative thoughts, until you've crushed them all. And I used to use this technique all the time.
I still assign it as homework for folks to be able to do externalization of resistance or externalization of voices on their own. And I find it really useful for myself. I use this exercise if I'm upset. And
so what are the directions or what are the instructions that you give to someone who's going to do this?
To take a negative thought that you'd like to defeat, that's making you feel crummy, and maybe you've already done a little bit of the positive reframing to see what positive values are connected to you for having the thought. And then if you still want to feel a little bit better, if the thought's nagging at you, just write it down on the left column. I guess you could call it the evil thoughts, the thoughts that are making me feel crummy. And then respond on the right-hand side. And then draw a diagonal line back the left-hand side. That's the zigzag part. And start a new negative thought, writing down, yes, but.
You used to call this butt rebuttal.
Butt rebuttal. I like that.
Yeah.
Right. That's so fun. This was written by someone named Jeremy, and he concluded this by saying, "Thank you so much, Dr. Burns, for giving the world your books, your ideas, your trainings. And thank you, Dr. Borowski, for facilitating this wonderful podcast series, which brings to life this and for future generations so much wisdom, compassion, and joy."
And thank you so much, Jeremy, for that. And if you want to send me that copy of what you just saw there, I'll put it in the show notes too.
Okay,
to
great.
Start, because it's neat stuff.
Yeah. All right, so let's start on our Ask David, and this is about Chris, who asked you about if you have a book about assertiveness. And he wrote, "Hi, Dr. Burns. I hope you're doing well. Do you have a book on assertiveness training? I've used your books to help me with my hidden should statements, which has enabled me to be less angry or anxious whenever someone treats me less than satisfactorily. While this has helped me immensely, I realize it's still in my interest to reduce the behavior I disagree with. For example, my siblings scheduled an early morning shift after I had a long day of work. Because they can't drive, they expect me to take them to work, which means I'll only get about 5 hours of sleep. This isn't in itself a bad thing, except this is the third time in a row they've done this. After using your techniques, I'm less angry and anxious, but I still want to address the behavior to reduce the likelihood that they do something like this again, which is why I'm reaching out. Thank you for your help. Kind regards, Chris."
Well, I'll let you guys take first shot at it if you like, and then I'll add my own 2 cents.
You want to
vice versa, whatever you want to do.
You want to take
I'll put in 2 cents, and my guess is that you and Rhonda have $150.
That's funny.
Assertiveness was probably one of the hardest things for me to learn, but you helped me so much with it, David. And I think it's just one of the 5 secrets of effective communication, the I feel statement. And I didn't grow up around hearing a lot of examples of people saying, I feel this way, talking about their feelings. I think I had more of like, you should do this thing or something like that is the message
Right.
that I would hear in communication. But yeah, I would say that the book that you wrote, maybe all your books are about assertiveness in a way. But Feeling Good Together talks about how to use the 5 secrets in a respectful and admiring way. And so I don't know if I wouldn't say that that's a book about assertiveness training, because what you're offering is so much more expansive than just one technique, one method. You're offering hundreds of methods. But I feel statements are really important. And I found it such a relief to be able to incorporate that into my communication. It resolved a lot of conflicts and helped me a lot. Thank you.
Cool. Great answer. Thank you, Matt. Rhonda.
Matt, I agree with 100% with everything you're saying. And not only do I agree
disarming.
with you,
I like your disarming.
I love how you say it. I'm going to say that I love all the 5 secrets. And I think they all have something to do with assertiveness, including what David and Mike Christian has taught me. But say something, it really helps if you do the stroking first. And that kind of puts people at ease. And then the disarming, where you find some truth in what they're saying. And then you can, whatever order, then you can talk about, do the I feel statement or feeling empathy, where you're talking about their feelings and thought empathy. But, doing a warm and compassionate 5 secrets response is a great avenue for being assertive.
Yeah, beautiful, beautifully said. Let me say that I virtually never give credit to anyone else for anything, and because I'm so impressed with my own work. Shut up, David. You sound like a goofball. I am a goofball. But at any rate, one thing I often have given credit to was recommended to me in the early days of my practice, before I'd even written Feeling Good or Feeling Good Together. And she said she'd really been helped by this book by Manuel J. Smith called When I Say No, I Feel Guilty, which certainly fits Chris's predicament exactly. And so I bought it to see why she liked it so much. And I read it. I'm a slow reader, but I managed to read the whole book in about 10 minutes on the train home from work to Bryn Mawr, because you can kind of skim through it and read a few sentences and you've got the whole book. But I found it really helpful. It was overly simplistic, but sometimes, getting one simple message across can be important to people. And my wife read it and she liked it, and we had our son read it and he liked it. And the whole message of the book is that you have a right to say no, and to you don't always have to be giving in to people. And that was a very refreshing message, especially in its day. But like anything, it had its weaknesses, and the whole assertiveness training movement had its weaknesses, because it was all about, like, you're so important and you are going to express your feelings, and then all the world's going to come together, and people go from the extreme of being overly nice and overly submissive and always saying yes, to kind of trying to suddenly be this very powerful, assertive person and say no, and think that all these great things are going to happen. And I had a perfect example of why that's not true. And I, after I read that book, it said if the other person doesn't listen to you, you just keep repeating yourself, your assertive demand, kind of like, I think he called it the squeaky door technique. And so I had this problem. I went to the local gas station and had my windshield wipers replaced because they were old. And then when it started raining the next day, I realized they'd put on the wrong kind of windshield wipers. And I got really mad. And I thought, well, this is a good chance to use that assertiveness book. So I went to the gas station. This was on a Sunday or something. And there was the attendant there, and I just followed the book exactly. I said, you replaced my window wipers day before yesterday, but they're the wrong kind and they don't work. And so I'd really like it if you'd put in the right kind for me. And the attendant was this big burly guy, and he said, well, I can't. Not allowed to do that on weekends. You'll have to come back tomorrow and talk to the manager. And then I remembered what it said to do in the book. And so I said, I understand that you're saying that you can't do it on weekends and that I'll have to come back tomorrow and talk to the manager. But it's raining right now, and I need windshield wipers, so I'm going to have to ask you to replace the windshield wipers right now and not tomorrow. And then he seemed to get irritated, and he says, "I told you you're going to have to come back tomorrow, if to get your windshield wiper problem fixed." And he started walking off to wait on a new customer. But I remembered what it said in the book. It said you don't have to take no for an answer. So I started following him. And I said, I understand that you're going to wait on this new customer, but you gave me the wrong kind of windshield wipers, and I'm going to have to insist that you change them now because it's raining. And then he looked at me and he said, if you don't get the F out of here, I'm going to pick up that that hammer and break your kneecaps. And he was really glaring angrily. And I said, yeah, I think I'll come back tomorrow. But that actually happened. But it was kind of a good lesson that it's important to be assertive and to share our feelings. But, life isn't a one-sided thing, and you can't go from I'm no good to you're no good. And that's kind of why I wrote Feeling Good Together, is to have a more balanced view of communication. And both people are important. And it's not going from I'm unimportant and you're so important to I'm important and you're not important, but going to a state of, we're both important, and showing respect for other people and warmth. And I've, like so many people, I've learned that you can often get, a lot more something or other with sweetness than with something sour. But at any rate, if you want a simple book to read fast on assertiveness and you feel like you need to beef up your confidence, it's Manuel Smith's book. Is kind of a quick, fast read, and I recommend it. And if you want something more serious about how to really change the way you communicate with other people, then I think Feeling Good Together is a lot more sophisticated.
Nice.
Yeah, I second that recommendation.
Yep.
Can I third it?
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
Third's a charm.
Is there?
And one last thing I have to add, because sometimes simple helps. Once I was hiking on a weekend with Tony Bates, who was working with me in my clinic in Philadelphia, and we would talk cases. Once he just made this offhand comment that had never occurred to me before, and it really helped me. He just said something like, some people don't realize that, healthy anger and unhealthy anger are radically different. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, in unhealthy anger, you're trying to get back at the other person or hurt them or put them down. And in healthy anger, and it just escalates. You don't get anywhere with it. Just develop an enemy, and that's why the whole world is fighting and killing and going to war and things like that. But in healthy anger, you can still have love and respect for the other person, but you share your negative feelings, your anger, in a kindly and warm way. And also you combine it with really good listening to hear the other person's thoughts and feelings and point of view. You disarm them. You use thought and feeling, empathy, and you don't assume that just because you're pissed off at somebody, they're a bag of dirt or something like that. And it was just a simple thing, healthy versus unhealthy anger. It really opened up my eyes, just that simple phrase. And then I got to thinking, wow, there's a healthy and an unhealthy sadness. Healthy sadness is not the same as depression, and healthy fear is not the same as neurotic anxiety, and healthy remorse when you hurt someone you love is not the same as neurotic guilt, and so forth. And it kind of opened up my whole to get a broader vision of all kinds of negative emotions, that there's a healthy version and an unhealthy version.
Nice.
I love that point. I also want to repeat something that you told me once, David, which is that the 5 secrets are tools.
Yeah.
And like any tool, they can be used in constructive ways or in destructive ways.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it has to do with the mindset that you're carrying with you when you're entering into some conversation. Like, are you trying to change that other person or force them to do what you want, control them or feel powerful or righteous? Or are you seeking more closeness and empathy and warmth and connection and to resolve a problem in the relationship so you can have an even better relationship?
Yeah.
And you can have all the fancy tools in the world, but if you're using them with the wrong mindset, it's not going to help you.
Yeah, so there's an inner dialogue when you're upset with someone. That's what you're telling yourself. And if you have a lot of distortions, your outer dialogue won't be any good either. Like if you're telling me, so this person's a jerk, all he cares about is himself, all that he shouldn't be such an asshole. And, I'm going to give him a piece of my effing mind. If you're having those kinds of angry thoughts, you're going to be unsuccessful in trying to modify your external dialogue. The mindset is so important. And I would add that some of the patients I felt ended up feeling the closest to were the ones I was angry with and decided to tell them in a kindly way. And it really led to a deepening of the relationship and the development of profound liking and respect for people that I had found very off-putting initially.
Can I make a plug for one of my favorite authors?
Yeah.
His name is David Burns.
Yeah, that's right. Plug away.
He wrote this book called When Panic Attacks. And I think part of the reason that I was not using I feel statements was I was just afraid to, because I thought it would lead to conflict. I thought being vulnerable and opening up with my feelings would lead to some terrible thing. It was like dangerous.
Yeah, right.
People use this against me or reject me when I'm at my most vulnerable. And that book actually helped me a lot to overcome my anxiety and realize that it's like this Chris who's writing in, it's probably real scary for him to tell his brother about his feelings.
Yeah.
And not only is he feeling bad, like I should never say no, but conflict is dangerous. If I talk about my feelings, it'll lead to bad things.
Oh, that's right. Let's do one more round on this question, because all these questions, once you start talking about them, there's a whole world inside of each of these questions. but how might Chris express it to his brother? Well, like his brother is calling to ask him to get up super early in the morning to drive him to work, him to work, right?
Yeah.
And then he only gets 5 hours sleep, and he's done this 3 times in a row. Why don't each of you give your version, and then we'll grade it.
Okay. Can we just give him a random name so that it personalizes the role play?
Yes.
Bob.
Okay.
Yes.
Bob or Bobo? Yeah. Let's say his brother is named Bob, and you play the role of Chris, and tell him kind of how you're feeling.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Shall I go first, Matt, or do you want to go first? Yeah. Okay, I'll go first. Oh, Bob, I am really admiring, your dedication to your job. And, it's, I heard you just ask me that I heard you just ask me to take you to work.
Again,
yeah. I heard you ask me to take you to work. And, I imagine you're feeling really hopeful about getting to work on time. And maybe it's just a neutral feeling of an expectation that I'm going to take you there. To be honest, I'm feeling what am I feeling? I'm feeling a little uptight, actually, and a little tense about it, first of all, having this conversation, because I love you so much and I want to support you and I don't want to disappoint you. And it's really hard for me to say no to you. But I'm also feeling a little tense because every time I take you to work, I have to get up super early and I only have 5 hours of sleep. And so while I appreciate you asking me to support you, I'm going to have to say no because I need my sleep or I won't be able to function myself. And I want to know, what's it like for you that I'm telling you no? I mean, can you tell me, yeah, what's that like for you? And I really love you and I want to hear more about how this no is affecting you in your life.
What grade did you give yourself?
Well, I'll say a B+ because I did fumble a little with, identifying what the feelings were.
Yeah.
And I didn't say angry or afraid. So that's a ding.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How about Matt? How did you grade it?
I loved it just because you were starting to talk about the elephant in the room. And even if it wasn't perfect, I kind of liked that it was imperfect.
Oh,
but
okay,
it felt like coming from a place of intent that was healthy and good. So I'm giving you enough minus. No, I'm giving. I don't know. I'm giving you at least a B+.
Okay, great. Thanks.
I'd give it a B+ or A-. I thought you were going to give it an A, Matt, but I thought it was excellent. You can always improve these things, but I didn't see any huge errors. I think you used Strocaine. You said that you loved him. You shared your feelings. You said it was hard, that you needed your own sleep. Do you want to take? I don't know. I gave it an A- at any rate.
Yeah.
Rhonda.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. I appreciate that feedback.
Yeah. You want to take a shot at it, Matt, and show us what an A+ is like?
Oh, I'll probably fall flat on my face with that expectation. But
yeah, I know.
I think the only thing I was musing about was using a disarm, saying,
yeah,
I think it was actually my fault too, because you've asked me a couple times to do this like early morning shift thing, and then I wasn't getting enough sleep, and I didn't talk about that with you. I didn't bring up with you that was actually kind of stressing me out, and that I was starting to feel even a little resentful towards you, my own brother, but I'm really bad at kind of bringing this kind of thing up. And so I let you down by not bringing it up sooner. And so it makes sense you would have the expectation that I would take you to work at that time.
Mm.
Yeah, I love that too.
Oh my God, I love it.
That's terrific. Yeah, fantastic. Alrighty, let's go on.
Well, sorry, Matt, that was definitely an A+
question. Oh yeah, it was beautiful.
Okay,
it was beautiful. That's why we pay you the big bucks, man.
I've still been looking for my paycheck.
Yeah,
I've been meaning to talk to you about
that. The Tooth Fairy is delivering it.
Yeah.
Okay, this is from Brian, and this is a simple question. He asked you, is there anything to the theory that suppressing emotions is harmful, or is that just Freudian mumbo jumbo? Thanks.
All right. Give you guys first shot again. And kind of a fun question from Brian. Thanks, Brian.
Do you want to go first, Rhonda?
Well, I honestly, I think that this is a similar question to Chris's question.
Interesting.
And like, what is a suppressed emotion? I would want to get a little bit more specific about what does that mean? Does that mean that that a person is too anxious or afraid to share their feelings, so they're actively pushing their their negative thoughts or their feelings down so that they don't give voice to them? And are they doing that for lack of for like what Chris described as a lack of assertiveness or a fear of expressing them? And so there's lots of different avenues we could take once the person was able to define what the issue really is for them. Maybe we would work with them to overcome the anxiety that they're feeling about expressing their emotions. Or maybe there's some depression going along with it. Or maybe they don't know how to create the kind of relationship where they could express their emotion. It might be more 5 secrets training.
Good answer.
Like
yeah. How about you, Matt?
Thank you.
So if I understand the difference between repression and suppression, repression is something we're all doing at all times. We're pretty much procrastinating everything right now because we can only do one thing at a time. And we're just putting, the vast majority of tasks off until later, and maybe even scheduling to do those tasks later if they're important. But suppression is a process where we're just completely deciding we're never going to touch this. We're never going to deal with this concern or this issue. And sometimes that's healthy. There's certain things you can just decide, okay, I'm never going to face this or do this thing. I think that could be okay. I think a lot of times, though, because all feelings get expressed, as my favorite author David Burns once said, all feelings get expressed. And so these feelings come out in other ways, often, pain or anxiety, unusual symptoms that kind of stump normal, because folks will be suffering a lot and going to the doctor a lot to try to figure out what's going on. And oftentimes doctors don't know that the emotional suffering can get expressed in physical ways and have various symptoms. So yeah, I think suppression can be a dangerous or unhealthy way of dealing with our problems.
Yeah, great answer. And I think sometimes Freud gets justifiably bashed and psychoanalysis, but sometimes unjustifiably, because there is some considerable wisdom in a lot of these notions. And I think you've both said it, and I think one of our equivalents of it is the hidden emotion idea, that the only nice people develop anxiety disorders. And it's because we sweep our negative feelings under the rug, or sometimes positive feelings, thinking we're not supposed to feel the way we do. So we kind of forget that we're angry with somebody, or don't like our job, or don't want to major in what our parents want us to major in school or graduate school or something like that. And then suddenly we're having panic attacks or OCD symptoms or phobias or chronic worrying or whatever. Where I've found a little difference from Freud is that I think he saw this as a key to depression, and he saw depression as anger turned inwards. And his theory was that we say love our parents, but we're angry with them, and we're afraid to express our anger to them because then they'll reject us and we'll be alone and worthless. And so we hide it and direct it against ourselves instead. And Beck was never impressed with that dynamic, and I was never terribly impressed with it either. But I think it can occur sometimes like that. And certainly, if you look at the thoughts of depressed people, they are a form of being angry with yourself, beating up on yourself, saying mean things to yourself. I'm not good enough. I'm such a loser. There's nothing special about me. And that's kind of my 2 cents worth there. And I do think that human beings have a tremendous problem with negative emotions, and anger is probably one of the hardest ones that we're trying to hide from ourselves and from other people.
Nice. Shall I ask question number 3?
I think so, and we'll let you tackle this one, Matt.
So,
okay.
Matt does ask the miracle cure question. Matt asks about the miracle cure question in the assessment of resistance portion of a team therapy session. And he wrote, "Hi, David. I've noticed that when I ask the miracle cure question or the magic wand question, I'll sometimes get a response that isn't all that useful. And I might waste time trying to figure out what the person is really asking for. An example might be, I want to be able to support and understand my husband who is addicted to video games and spends a lot of our money on games. I found it helpful in such situations to ask, let's imagine you could achieve that goal. You are perfectly understanding and supportive at all times of your husband who is addicted to video games and spends a lot of your money on games. What would change in your life if all your dreams came true? I think this might help in a lot of cases where the agenda is a bit fuzzy and unclear. Wishing you the best. Matt."
And so I don't know this Matt fellow. But...
Yeah, well, share your thinking with him. He's a very handsome, brilliant guy, I might say.
Yeah.
And
I'm envious of him.
Yeah, and also in the market for a new wife, in case there's any fabulous ladies listening to this podcast and looking for a most eligible bachelor.
Oh my gosh, Matt, how cute you are when you blush and you turn beet red.
I was going to say, once again, I am beet red.
Yeah.
Thank you, David, for doing the self-disclosure I never would.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was a question that actually came up, and so the example was the person saying, the patient saying, I want to be able to support and understand my husband who is addicted to video games.
But Matt, what was what's the miracle question first that you asked her?
Well, this wasn't my patient. It was more of consultation.
Uh-huh.
And the question, the response to the miracle question, which is, let's say I could help you with something, and it was like a dream come true, a miracle were to happen for you today, what would change in your life? And this person said, I want to be able to support and understand my husband who is addicted to video games and spends a lot of our money on games. And the concern I had is that if we just try to focus on that as it's written, we may not see some of the possible resistance to having a good outcome, meaning that this person may want all that support and understanding to lead to their husband changing and not playing any more video games and paying more attention to her. And that would be a reasonable thing for her to want. And it's also important for the therapist to be able to say, however, if that's the intention, if that's what you're hoping my methods would offer you, is your husband would change, that's something that I don't have to offer. And it's important to be able to be straightforward in terms of naming our limitations as a therapist, because I don't think it would be ethical for me to say, sure, I can help you change your husband so he no longer plays video games, because I just lack that ability to do that. But what I could actually offer is for you to gain that support and understanding and closeness with him. But sometimes it's not clear what people are actually asking for. And David has a way of seeing through that and saying, okay, I think what you're saying is this. But when I was starting out as a therapist, I couldn't figure it out. I oftentimes would just try to help people with exactly what they're saying they wanted help with without becoming aware of that resistance and what the hidden agenda might be in the therapy.
Yeah. I think I have so many terrible weaknesses, but one of my strengths is kind of hearing hidden agendas and hearing the music behind the words. I'm probably slightly paranoid, which allows me to do that. But I think what this person isn't saying, I want to understand why my husband is like this, and I want to be able to support him in his video game addiction. I think she's probably kind of angry with him and blaming him and saying that she wants to change him. And she's not looking for a lot of understanding and why. I mean, the answer to why does my husband play video games is very simple. He enjoys it. So now you have the answer you're looking for. What's next? But I think what I would really be doing is asking her to give me an example of an interaction and put it on the relationship journal. Give me one thing your husband said and exactly what you said next that didn't go particularly well, and then I think we'll be able to analyze her response to him and see that it's not being very helpful to her cause of either getting close to him or letting him know she has this concern, and view it as a relationship conflict. I don't know if I'm being very clear. What I'm saying sounds lame, but I think it's true. Let's see what I wrote in my answer here. I don't know. I had this thing about psychotherapy outcome studies. Now I can't even figure out what I was trying to say. But yes, I think people are generally asking to change their spouse, their partner. And the traditional thing in the field is you can't change other people. You can only change yourself. And my position is always the opposite. And the same is that you can't not change other people. We're always changing other people. And if you look at an interaction you're having with them, you'll see the impact of your behavior, which is frequently reinforcing or triggering or actually causing the very problem that you're talking about. And once you've pinpointed that, you can change the way you interact with the other person. And if you do it skillfully, you typically get a radically different response from them. And I don't know if that's consistent with what you're saying, Matt, or different, or just a different way of saying the same thing. I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe I'll bring up one thing that I really like about your model, David, is that it's constantly evolving. We're bringing new ideas to it.
Yeah.
And the downward arrow is a super powerful method to get to, okay, what is the most upsetting, self-defeating belief that someone might have that's causing them to feel worthless or defective?
Yeah.
This is, and so it's an uncovering technique. I'm interested in developing an uncovering technique that goes deeper when people identify what is their miracle cure, and to get underneath it to the different things that they're really most wanting from the therapy, so I have a better sense of how to help them, what methods to include, and what might be the resistance, the challenges that we'll face.
That sounds great, because this woman's probably asking for a more loving and intimate relationship with her husband. I would expect, and she's undoubtedly forcing that not to happen every time they have a problematic interaction, right?
Yeah, that there's probably some, again, all feelings get expressed. So she's probably expressing her hidden anger in some way that's making him want to withdraw.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. Something like that. But that's neat that your idea is to take a different angle and look even deeper. I love that.
And I'll cite Heather Clegg was someone who like kind of brought this to my attention in a way. She called it the upward arrow.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you could get everything you dream from therapy, what would that be? Okay, and what would that give you? Let's say you got that. What would be the awesome thing about that? So possibly it could increase motivation too.
So she'd say, my husband would stop playing video games and spend more time with me gardening or something.
Right.
And then where would you go from that?
That I don't have the power to change her husband or make him stop playing video games. I wouldn't know how to do that. And I wouldn't want you to enter into the conversation with him with a goal of changing him and trying to stop him from playing video games, because that'll almost certainly backfire. But I would urge you to talk about the feelings that come up for you. Like maybe you're feeling lonely or sad, just missing him, and a little ticked off that he's spent some more money on video game purchases, and also just really love him and care about him.
Right. So when people have relationship problems, we want to try to become aware of the what's missing in that relationship and what we can do to help people bring about what's missing by changing themselves rather than trying to change the other person. And then the paradox is the very instant you change, the other person will change at that same moment.
That's right. Yep. That's beautiful, David.
Really nice.
Okay. But that's better than, David, that sucks. You're wrong.
You should change.
Yeah, you have to see an example of it to really grasp it. What I've been saying probably sounds like a lot of baloney.
Matt, if we were doing the deeper dive into the downward arrow or the upward arrow, as Heather calls it, and you said, well, what would you want to get out of therapy? And I said, well, I'd want my husband to stop playing video games. And you said then, well, I'd urge you to talk about, just summarizing, you would urge me to talk about my feelings. It's, what you beautifully just described. Is there
without trying to change him? Without trying to change him.
Is there another follow-up? Like in the downward arrow, we ask, how would that affect you? Imagine that were true. Why would that be upsetting? What would be the follow-up to, what would the miracle cure upward or downward arrow?
Well, I don't know if I
does that make
totally
sense?
I don't know if I totally understand the question, but
yeah,
as like if we're doing something like Heather's upward arrow, it would just be to say, what would you get if you completely understood him? And then if the answer were, well, then he would stop playing video games and spend more time with me gardening, that would help me understand that there is actually a secret agenda for her to change him. Rather than to love him exactly the way he is and, bring him milk and cookies while he's playing video games and ask him questions about his video games. And, can we play again sometime soon? I want to play more video games with you. That there's some other agenda going on that needs to get acknowledged. Like maybe she's grieving a hard decision that she may have to make about whether she wants to be married to someone who plays video games all the time.
Right.
And she may not want that. And so we could bring in different parts of the model. Like, would she want to feel better with a husband who's addicted to video games? Would she want to structure her life differently, to not be married any as a result of this? Other ways that we could help her, rather than pursuing an agenda that is just going to make things worse as she tries to change him using fancier and fancier tools.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's making sense.
It's
That's
making
my
really
own
sense.
baloney.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. I like that you talked about grief, because before you said lonely, sad, maybe ticked off because he's spending money, that she loves him, but there is a level of grief if she makes a decision to structure her life differently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, you guys, I'm afraid that we're going to have to end the podcast for today.
We've done it again. We've wasted another perfectly good hour and a half of your time. It's great to spend time with you both.
Yeah,
yes,
it's really
absolutely.
great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And thank you all for joining us. Please send us your questions. We love your questions and having the chance to talk about them and get into some good conversation. That's our goal. And because I'm babbling, I will now stop.
I love your babbling, David. Please keep doing it.
Thank you. Okay.
I love it too. And I just want to add, even though I said we don't have time anymore, both of you did such a beautiful job of illustrating the importance of therapists listening to the music behind what someone is saying, and even listening for the hidden agenda, the hidden emotion. And I'm imagining that that's a skill that develops with a lot of experience and, insight. Yeah.
Yeah. And what I was trying to say is that when therapists don't have that, when they can't really hear what's going on, then they're going to be taking techniques and using them in a clumsy way. That therapy is not a matter of, taking formulas to attack problems or diagnoses that people have, but rather working with human beings and learning how to hear where people are at and develop a meaningful relationship and make people aware of things, that behind their words, things that they're not even crystal clear on, so that you're kind of hitting the nail on the head. And I think that a lot of therapy is pretty ineffective because that aspect is missing. And I think that's why psychotherapy outcome studies for depression, at any rate, all come out about the same, and just barely better than placebo for that very reason.
Yeah, because just to go back to this person, if the therapist had said, "Oh, well, you want to support your husband, who's playing video games in this addictive way," that would go in a completely different direction from what Matt described.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
David, isn't something exciting happening in August of 2024?
I don't think so.
I'm positive that is. Think harder. It's the August 8th it starts?
Oh, no, that's the intensive you're thinking about.
Oh, tell us about it.
Okay, I'm just trying to be a silly buffoon here, which comes naturally. But at any rate, yes, if any of you are therapists, August 8th to 11th, we're bringing back my original 4-day intensives, which I did once a year at the South San Francisco Conference Center. And thanks to Rhonda and Jill and the Feeling Good Institute, we're bringing them back to life. We're reincarnating them. And it's going to be fantastic. And you can come live, in which case you should try to register right away, because the live seating will be strictly limited to 100 people. And then it'll also be online if at a lower price. Either is going to be a tremendous opportunity. So and then didn't Jill send us, if they want a quick link? It's called what? She gave us this quick link we could put in a podcast. Remember?
Yes. And
Feeling Good Intensive or something like that.
I'll have to find it.
You can find it, and
Yeah.
so you can click on it and read about the cost and the details. I think you get some massive number of CE credits, like 30. But the thing is, it's completely different from any other kind of workshop, and it's like magic happens at the summer
Right.
intensive.
It is absolutely magic. I want to reiterate that too, that I went to my first intensive in 2013, and it absolutely changed my life, both personally and professionally. And it's really fun. It's great learning, and it's really fun.
Yep.
David, you make it fun.
David makes it fun.
Yeah.
Sorry,
the whole group makes it fun. The whole group creates the magic.
Mm-hmm. I can't find the email that she sent.
Okay, we'll put it in the show notes.
Okay.
Yeah, we can ask her. She's going to be with us in just a minute, right?
Yeah. Okay, there's a lot of editing going on to this podcast, so let's say bye.
Okay, goodbye, everybody. Love y'all.
Goodbye.
This has been another episode of the Feeling Good podcast. For more information, visit Dr. Burns' website at feelinggood.com, where you will find the show notes under the podcast page. You will also find archives of previous episodes and many resources for therapists and non-therapists. We welcome your comments and questions. If you want to support the show, please share the podcast with people who might benefit from it. You could also go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. I am your host, Rhonda Borowski, the director of the Feeling Great Therapy Center. We hope you enjoyed this episode. I invite you to join us next time for another episode of the Feeling Good podcast.